I got all the steel out to make the frame. My design has changed somewhat, as I did mention early on in the video. I didn't really have a plan, but I think I have a plan now. That will be my base, and alright, so these are temporary in position just to give me ideas as I go along, because like I said in the beginning of this video in part 1, that I actually don't have a plan. I'm just going by what I've seen and and some research that I've done. So anyway, so these holes are slotted at the back here, as you can see there, the same as the shaft hole there, which I just used the cutting torch to burn. Didn't want to spend a lot of time slotting and stuff. I mean, this is not going to win any beauty contest. And the idea now is, because this roller is actually resting on this roller, the idea now is to make a bracket here that will actually be able to lift this roller up and lower it once it's, and lower it up and down in the slots as required. That purely is purely to adjust the thickness, the gap here for the thickness of plate, because the plate must be able to pinch. So when you roll, and the plate must be able to feed through the roller. The two rollers must actually pinch the plate, so you actually adjust the top roller here. So I'll be using this threaded bar in a bracket that I'm going to make, and I'm actually going to bolt the bracket through this bolt holes. So when I crack the bolts loose, I'll be able to turn here, and she should be able to lift. Well, theoretically that is the plan. Alright, so my design has changed a little bit. As you saw in my construction, it was vertical. I've decided to throw it down horizontal. Let me just show you what it looks like now, and then I'm going to go to the whiteboard just to explain more or less why. Right, this is it in the horizontal position. I put the top roller more or less where it's going to be. The shaft at this present moment is resting on this piece of steel here, same on this side, but I must cut away, and then I'll slot this here for the shaft to actually pass through, so that it can actually touch the rollers, because it's standing above the rollers now. So this is basically the position it's going to be in. Let me just go to the whiteboard and explain to you more or less quickly why I've changed my mind. So I made these drawings just to illustrate quickly. It's kind of difficult for me to explain what's happening, because I'm working off the cuff all the time. I don't really have a drawing. I don't have anything that I could work from. But in the horizontal position, the two rollers would be like this, and as I explained, the top one would have been adjustable, or not would have been, still is adjustable, right? So this one could move up or down, and that is to feed in the plate here, and then it will pinch here. So when you crank these two rollers, the plate must move through. But the problem with that is also, if this roller cranks in this direction, this one must crank in that direction. So then I need like a gearbox arrangement, whereas if I turn here, a planetary gear will turn that, and it will turn opposite. So that was a little bit more intricate. And also, as it passes through, this roller here must be able to adjust upwards, right? So when the plate comes, like for argument's sake, if the plate comes through and it touches the roller there on top, then you actually turn it to apply a vertical pressure upwards, and then you roll and you turn and you roll and you roll, then your plate will eventually curve like that as the roller goes, like, as you like go up with the roller, it will curve. In the current position now, it's in our horizontal position, so that means the plate will be fed in between the top roller, the single top roller, and the two bottom rollers, And in this case, this roller must turn in this direction and this one must turn in the same direction. So if you crank it here, let's say this is the crank, and the two's like attached with a chain, which I'm planning on doing, which I'll show you as I go along. Then the plate goes through. This roller here must be able to push downwards in between that two rollers in order to force the roller to cave like that. You know, if that's the two rollers and that one is there. And then as you apply pressure downwards there, this cave will become greater and greater and greater like that. So this is a much simpler arrangement, first of all, because both gears move in the same direction, and that just moves downwards. This is a much more intricate one, because this two must move in the opposite direction in order to force the roller through. And this one must be able to move past it, not into it, past it, you know, to create that. So I think this is a simpler one. I'm going with this one. Okay, so as I said, I must now just work out where I'm going to slot this plate here on both sides in order for this roller to drop down. As you can see, guys, this thing still hasn't been machined. I'm going to machine this last. I thought I'll build the machine first and then through this. Don't need that whole body, as I explained in my very first video. That is the hole in the flange, so that's quite fine. So I'm going to work out this, slot that, get this to touch that, and then work out how I'm going to suspend this roller for the up and down movement in order to pinch the plate inside there. Okay. So I made these marks to get the center between these two. So yes, this could be in that direction, and then this center will be plus minus. Look, I have some play in these bolts, but this is just to get them more or less center. So basically I must chop this out here, you know, something like that, you know, something to that effect. I was kind of chop it out, something like that. Maybe not that low down, you know, maybe like that. I'll see. As long as there's enough space here for the shaft to clear and for the roller to touch there. Alright, I'm going to do this and I'll show you the result. Right, so I made this plate up on the side. It goes onto the bearing, obviously, like that bearing bolts onto there. And this side now I'm going to cut this area a little bit shorter. I'm going to cut this lower down. Both sides I'm going to cut lower down. I'll probably bend this over just to give this area some strength, although isn't going to be any like heavy pressures on this thing. And then I'm going to weld a nut on there, I think. And then I'm going to take something like this and, like, you know, put it over here, cut this to suit, and let this be the base that I'm going to jack through and up. So you can see how this thing is sitting now on that bottom base, and obviously V that out so that when this thing needs to be jacked upwards it has space to move. And you can see basically I'm gonna just work this plate here. I'm obviously gonna drill and tap a hole here, or I'm gonna weld a nut on whichever threaded bar, which will go down to that. And that will be the up and down movement. I'll put a handle on that threaded bar, and that will be the up and down movement of this roller. Okay, she's coming together, so let's carry on. after drilling that hole, I took a cutting torch and I cut that hole big enough for 16 mil to go through. I initially wanted to tap thread into this thing, but I never had a 14 mil drill bit, and even if I had one, it wouldn't go into the hand drill. Well, I got that other drill mill thing, but anyway, this was just quicker. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to weld a nut on top here, something like this. I'm going to weld that nut there, like that, and let's just see how this works out. Okay, so I made a couple of MacGyvers here. You saw me welding all these things and whatever. So the idea of this is when I turn here, then obviously this thing will push this bearing down. And if I turn it this way, then obviously the bearing will raise. So I had to make something that will pivot there. So that's why I welded that nut onto the threaded bar, and I put that thing which bottoms out against the threaded bar, hence the gap in between. So anyway, I'm going to put this now on there, and if it works quite fine, then I'm going to do that side. Alright, she's kind of assembled here. You can see how it will work. Obviously I'm going to put like a bar across here, you know, so I can just spin it. I cannot see why this will not work. I'm just finding the difficulty operating this because as I'm jacking this, nothing is fastened to each other, so it's a bit of an issue. But there's definitely no reason why this shouldn't work. So I'm going to do that side now, and then when it's done, I'm going to show you guys. Okay, so as I showed you earlier, on this side I completed, and then I started on that side. That side is now complete. Let me just show you. There we go. So exact duplicate as the opposite side. I'm gonna just obviously set things up because things are still laying a little bit skew, but I mean that's neither here nor there. And then I'm just going to temporarily tack this together to make sure everything is functional. Obviously on top here I'm going to put a handle so one can just turn it, because this thing moves actually quite nicely up and down. And if you can recall, when I made this base in the vertical position, I slotted it for this thing to travel up and down. I'm still manufacture this what do you call it, something like this, jacking point, let's say jacking point. And over here, this is what I made to go in there. So I'm still manufacture this thing's jacking point, but I'm actually going to leave that for last. I first want to make sure everything works perfectly fine as far as the rollers go. And then as far as the drives go, this is the drive end here, hence this long thing. I got of these sprockets. This was the one that was laying around, and then I got another one here. I'm going to buy this one. It wasn't necessary for me to buy this type of sprocket, but because I had one like this laying around, I just replicated it. It's actually a waste of time having a sprocket like this, because she freewheels, so I'll actually have to weld this all together here and make it like a fixed cog. So that is going to go there. I'll need to make a sleeve for this to go on, and then of course she'll be driven by the chain. Let me just do that quickly. Trying to do everything with one hand here, it's a bit awkward. Anyway, like that, she'll be driven like that. Obviously the chain will link there. And then I'm going to make the sleeve for this to fit on the shaft, and then on this one I'll make the handle, the crank handle, which will turn, and then this too should turn in that direction. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish off this bolting units in here, because this one also doesn't have it. I'm going to finish that off. Then I'm going to take this thing apart, and then I'm just going to tack this to the frame and stuff just to get everything nice and steady. And then I'm going to start on the sleeve for the cogs. So for a machine that never had a real design, when I started it to actually roll something like this, and this is actually ideal, this is exactly what I want. So I think this machine should definitely work for me. The only thing that I must do now is I must just put a crank handle on here so I can crank it like that. I just use my hand here just as this demonstration now. I got a bit of slack in the chain there, but that's fine. I might just put a bit of a tension in there or something. And then obviously I'm going to paint this up and finish everything off. Everything is still very rough here, but my main thing was just to make sure that it can roll before I spend more time trying to, you know, neaten things up and it actually doesn't work. But as far as I'm concerned, this seems to be 100%. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the two-part series on me making this sheet metal roller. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment. If it's your first time here, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers for now.